Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are. My name is Kevin Porman. I'm a developer advocate here at Salesforce, and I've got a couple of really special guests today with me. One is Brian Douglas. You may know him as at Bdougie on the internet, on the Twitterverse. Brian, you want to say something about yourself?
Yeah. I am Brian, go by Bdougie on the GitHub and Bdougie on Twitter, and I'm advocate here at GitHub, based in Oakland, California. And I am a big fan of pizza, I guess. I don't know if that's as interesting as it sounds, but I enjoy this spot close to my house called Namaste Pizza, which is Indian fusion pizza. Absolutely amazing.
So, what kind of toppings do you get on Indian fusion pizza?
I mean, it's like what you'd normally get in like an Indian dish, like chicken marsala or
Pizza.
butter chicken, or but on pizza, yeah. And they do a really good job. Also, their
Fascinating.
wings,
Is it
their wing sauce is absolutely amazing as well.
is it thin crust New York style, or like Midwestern where it's basically a loaf of bread with stuff on top, or how's it work?
No, it's definitely more thin crust.
All right,
But I wouldn't say it's like New York style. It's more of like, honestly, more like Domino style, to be quite honest.
all right, fair,
But the toppings really make the pizza for sure.
cool. So if you caught that, Brian is a developer advocate at GitHub, and today we're going to be talking about GitHub Actions, and specifically we've got two things we're going to deal with. One is a common issue that you may have with some open source repos and some GitHub Actions with those. And two, we're going to actually build a GitHub Action specifically for Salesforce development, for people who are doing packages with Salesforce development. Both of these are real life issues I hit. I was working on org shape a couple weeks ago, and I wanted to build an action to auto increment the version number, and so I thought we might work on that today. And the other one is we have all of our repos have CI built into them, and we've got it set up so that people can submit a third-party pull request, but we're having a problem getting those to run correctly. So my goal, or my thought, was that we could tackle both of those. Why don't we? Which one should we start with?
Yeah, let's go with the third party pull
Pull
request.
requests. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, that might be pretty straightforward to start with, and give me a chance to explain a bit about actions before we jump into build one.
Okay. Let me finish the pull request to demonstrate it.
Okay.
Commit demo, and it's gonna prettify everything. Okay. This is
Nice little background you got there too as well.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's a very Northern California, Pacific Northwest feel.
I think it's actually one of the built-in Mac OS Big Sur ones.
Okay, actually that makes sense because it looks like around the corner from Big Sur.
Yeah, I've never been to Big Sur. It's honestly, it's on my bucket list, but just below, I want to go see the redwoods, the giant redwoods. I hear you can
Okay.
drive through one of them.
That tree actually, well, there's one of them that you could drive, but it fell down from some rain.
Oh,
So it's like an iconic one that basically it was dead for a very long time and it finally keeled over. But Big Sur, I've never actually been to as well. I've been north of there in Carmel, which is a beautiful area. It's very nice beaches. Very cold though. Good for surfing, not for laying out and getting tans.
all right. So I've got this pull request. I just pushed the fix for the pull request, so it'll be formatted nicely. And as we watch the pull request run, we can actually see the action here. It's going to go through and install some npm dependencies and fire up prettier, make sure everything's prettier. This is where it was failing before, but that's my fault. What we are seeing happen is when we get past this portion and we are doing the actual unit testing where we have to go spin up a scratch org and then push the code and then run the tests. When we actually get to that CI portion of it, creating the scratch org fails because it can't access the secret we've established that gives access to the authentication URL. So we can't create the scratch orgs, and then we can't push the code to the org. We can't run the tests, etc. So it just passed the formatting check here. And it's going to check out the source code. Good, it's completed the job. So if we go back to our other check on this one, where it's the scratch org test, and this is where we're seeing it fail, because we have it set up to go and install the CLI. That's fine. does that just fine. Let me scroll down the bottom here. Come on.
Quite some logs.
Yeah.
It's a good way for me to kind of explain GitHub Actions as well while we're waiting for this. GitHub Actions is a way for you to have reproducible, runnable code in an environment that GitHub gives you. So like your CI that you're running right now, my assumption is that you're using the hosted runners that GitHub has within your repositories. And this gives you the ability to run CI, but also to do some like automation for like issue labeling or assigning PRs if that's something that you don't have already set up built in. You do a lot of little clever things. For example, like one of my things is I update my README files with an action. I've set it up where I can just hit the button and it updates a follower account for my user profile, which I can show that in a bit.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. So what we're trying to do here is do that classical CI stuff. And when we go to authenticate to the Dev Hub, what it's trying to do is it's trying to use our URL. And you'll see here that's this Dev Hub SFDX URL that we've written. And when we do that in the previous one, it's going to grab the authentication URL from our secret and write it to a text file temporarily so that we can authenticate with it. But what we're seeing is that is blank. This comes out blank if it's a third-party pull request. Now, if it's a first-party pull request, so if I submit this to the repo and everything, it works fine. But doing it through the third-party one, it fails to get that secret and it doesn't work.
Yeah, and that's intentional for security reasons. So we have lots of open source users, a lot of projects that use GitHub Actions, and we wanted to make sure that folks who didn't have access to the repo could not run this. So if you don't have access to the repo, it makes it very hard. So for example, if you're running a fork, the assumption is that you don't have write access to the repo. That's what I'm trying to explain. So those tokens aren't accessible for anybody who's not like an admin or have write access. Which I guess my question for you for this Trailhead apps org, are you already a member of the org?
So I am, but my secondary demo user is not. So my fork user is not.
Okay, excellent.
And the fork user cannot be.
Yes. And so this is a common scenario for folks. So your user that's not part of Salesforce or the Trailhead organization maybe wants to produce, like you want them to be able to reproduce this. We have a couple different events. So if you can go to your CI.yaml workflow.
So let's do this. We're in the Trailhead apps. We'll look at it over here.
Yeah, and inside this .github folder, this is where the workflow file is, and these are where all your GitHub action workflows are. So this is the one that we're trying to run. And then I took a look at this earlier and saw that you're running on a couple different jobs. You can run 21 asynchronous jobs in the entire project. Actually, I think the number is 22 now. I should try to commit that to memory. But 22 asynchronous jobs within the project at the same time. You have quite a few different jobs in this one YAML. So just keeping that in mind for the listener. And then on the very top, you have, well, actually, on line 55 is where you have the scratch org test. So this is the current job that's failing.
Maybe I have the wrong file because I have it on 66.
Oh, maybe I'm looking at the wrong one then myself. Oh, well, 66 is... Wait, go back to line 66. Oh, maybe I'm in the wrong... Maybe I was looking at the wrong file. I'm looking at ci.yaml, but you're in... I
have... I'm in ci-pr.
Okay,
which runs when we have a PR come in.
Yes.
So yeah, let's look at ci-pr.
Yep. But you're correct. So line 66 is the place that it's failing. And then on line 6 is where we can sort of see that this is running on pull requests specifically. So on pull requests, it's going to assume org permissions. So that's the problem we're sort of running into right now. If we wanted to have a quick fix on this, and we were confident that all the secrets are okay to be run by third-party users, so anybody who's not part of the organization who wants to do a fork, the quickest fix is adding pull request _target instead. So
so let's talk about the implication of that. There's no way for anybody to actually see the secret, right?
Correct. So yeah, they can't console.log the secret if they're added to the secrets directory, which I guess we could show that too as well, which is in the settings tab.
Okay.
And so if you added it there, those are encrypted. And it's using, I forget the open source library that the encryption it's being leveraged with, but open source tool to do the encryption. If you add it to the repository, they can't console.log or print secrets to be able to read those and copy and paste them somewhere else. So like you're safe there. The only difference is what you do provide access to is them to run any workflow using the secrets that are labeled in there. So like if they want to add another workflow that, for example, mines Monero or whatever, Bitcoin, that is a possibility. So what we've introduced is being able to actually identify permissions based on scopes. So like the scope of creating a new action would be something you wouldn't allow for anybody to be able to do.
So how do I do that?
Request. So I sent you a link earlier.
Yeah, let me see if I can't bring that up.
Yeah, and this is the announcement of, we actually shipped this in April, being able to have fine permissions based on GitHub Actions. So in the permissions block there, the first one is actions. So this is being able to read and write and create actions. So we have a security lab team and they've security researchers here at GitHub and contractors as well who just, that's their job, is to make sure security is legit for this feature as well as other features. Sorry, do you have a comment?
No. I was like, yeah, no, it's cool that they've got security researchers.
So we wanted to separate. So like the context that we were talking about before is editing an actual file, like the JSON file for or whatever file you want to do. That's separated from actually editing actions. So anything in the workflows folder is actually combined in that first line, which is actions. So this will be able to read actions, but also write actions. And that's sort of the vulnerability. If you go in the GitHub Security Lab, if anybody wants to go down to research or the blog post on how people can pwn open source repositories with GitHub Actions by being able to create actions in a pull request and then have those actions run on some sort of cloud environment to be able to produce Bitcoin. And the article mentions this as well, and it's been on Hacker News and other places and other. It's been a problem for a long time since Action's been created. So we've always tried to circumvent this and go to the best practices of security. But there was an article also recently this year around this. But I'll move on from that. These are all the workflow events that you can sort of lock down permissions for.
So we could give read permissions to actions, but they wouldn't be able to create new ones.
Correct.
Okay, and we just put this in the YAML file?
Yeah. So this block, you can copy and paste the whole thing. Obviously, you would want to either have read, write, or none in each one of those.
Well, it says any permission absent will default to none.
Yeah.
So do we just have to create the permissions block to default to none?
Yeah. Yep. Okay. So if we create the permissions block and there are no permissions, then this is exactly as if pull request target was running.
Okay, here. So let me do this. I'm going to...
sorry, without the target.
I'm going to switch over to VS Code, and I'm going to create a new window and open up this project as me in VS Code so we can edit the file that's there.
Yep.
Let this spin up and go all the way up here to in GitHub workflows CIPR. Now, just out of curiosity, if I go back to GitHub here, if I choose the right window direction, and I look at where it's failing for this pull request, it ran, how do I tell which actions it ran? It's under checks.
Yeah, go into checks.
CI on PR.
That one. Yeah.
Okay, so it ran on CI on PR, and this is what we've loaded up, and I don't see a permissions. Yeah, we don't have a permissions key in here. So do we just add it at the top?
Yep. So you can add it below or above the on key.
Okay. And then do actions none. Well, do they need read access to the actions?
In this case, it does not need read access to actions. I think what we need read access to or write access is for pull request, specifically for that event.
So write access? Let's make sure I got the right one. It's this way. And
well, I guess this is it. We're actually not manipulating the pull request. What we're actually doing is we're manipulating the contents of the project.
So
actually,
contents.
Go ahead and explain to me what the action is doing at the point of failure.
So at the point of failure, it's trying to read a secret and write it to a file in the CI runner so that it can use that file to authenticate to our... the way Salesforce development works, you have what's called a DevHub org, and the DevHub org is sort of a controlling org for your group, and then you've got individual Scratch orgs that are children of it, and you have to be able to contact and authenticate to a DevHub org for user permissions in order to create a Scratch org. We create a Scratch org to run those CI tests.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds complicated, but we'll just run with having write access to the contents, and then see if we get any other different failures.
Okay.
If we run it, I mean, we can go ahead and run this. The other thing we could do as well for testing purposes, actually, we're going to need to actually re-trigger the action inside the pull request. So opening a pull request will give us an environment to be able to test this with.
Okay, so what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to do git checkout -b, and I'm going to do codeLive Bdougie, and I'll save this file there. All right, so if we were to look at what we've changed, all we've done is added this permissions block to that, and I'm going to say add perms block, quick and dirty, commit that. Let it. It's doing a bunch of local CI stuff before it actually commits. So we're using Husky to do formatting and that sort of stuff beforehand, which is what it's doing right now. Now, and then we'll turn around and probably gonna have to force this one. Let me see. Okay, so it formatted a bunch of other things. I'm going to amend this here. The joys of getting everything just right. And when I push, it should ask me to give because I'm using PSA. If you've never used them before, there's a great what do you call it? GitHub plugin extension for Visual Studio Code that gives you access to PRs, and it's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant.
Is that GitSense?
No, I use the actual GitHub one.
Okay.
That shows issues and local branches, and then when this gets done committing, I'll show you how it triggers. All right, so now if I push,
okay, cool.
If I push this here, okay. Push it to origin. It's going to think about it for a second, and then come down here. Do I want to create a pull request for branch? And if I create the pull request,
oh, that's clever. It's kind of like GitHub Desktop a bit.
Yeah,
creating some of those features.
Yeah, I'm going to create this here. And now if I were to go back over to GitHub, no, this is the wrong window. Where's my other? I have too many windows open. 1 second, please. There we go. Now if I go into this and I see I've got an 8th pull request. Here's this. The CLA is missing. Why is the CLA missing? I'm one of the owners of this. Okay. Awesome. Those are running. Anyway, so that should... while this runs and does all the CI work, let's switch over to our other issue of trying to create a GitHub action specifically for Salesforce developers. Now, to give you some idea of what we're doing here as you follow along at home, if you've never done packaging with Salesforce, you'll know that packaging of Salesforce code predates the idea of semantic versioning, or at least the publication of semantic versioning is a thing that we all know. And so we have this version number clause here in our package directories that is listed as 51.0.0.next. And that point next bit is an auto-incrementing number on the Salesforce side. But in order to promote a package from, just a demo package to something that could be installed in production, you have to actually manually increment the minor version. So if we come down here, you'll see that all of our automated packages that are created automatically get updated with that -21, -22, the build number there. But we need to be able to actually forcibly say, make 51.0.0 -next equal 51.0.1 -next. And we do that by incrementing this number so that when we trigger the packaging, the Salesforce side of things all works out correctly. So the idea here is we want to build a CI or a GitHub Actions action. It's conceptually harder to say than it sounds it should be. To actually open up this JSON file, grab this value, increment it, and write it back to the JSON file, which sounds pretty simple. Yeah,
famous last words, but yeah, it's pretty straightforward.
Okay.
And using the Actions toolkit, I think we can get a good working environment up and running pretty quickly.
So I've got an Actions toolkit, and I've installed it, and it wants me to know that that folder already exists. So let me get rid of that here. Okay, and I'll rerun that command. We're going to call this fsfdx version bump. Is there a naming convention for dashes versus underscores versus camel case?
So in JavaScript specifically, I guess I should ask, are you mainly a JavaScript developer?
JavaScript and Apex. Apex being a proprietary language that is Salesforce specific.
Okay. Yeah, so JavaScript, usually hyphens for node packages, I think is the way to go.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think that would work. Bumps package version. Yeah, and some people have, a lot of folks do put the hyphen action at the end of their project, but that's not really necessary.
Okay.
It would just make the name even longer and harder to remember.
We get to choose an icon for our...
So what this is going to do is going to make it ready to upload to the GitHub Marketplace.
Okay.
So these icons are font icons, or specifically feather icons.
Okay.
Open source library. I usually just use like thumbs up or whatever. You can change this pretty easily. And it's going to create a YAML file for you. And we can change it if you decide, a check square is not what you wanted.
Great. We're going to make it
here
orange because I like orange.
Yep. That's unique. I don't think I see a lot of orange GitHub Marketplace actions.
Okay.
And I can cover that. And once we get on GitHub, it will have like a little pop-up of getting this on the Marketplace, and I can talk through that in the future if we get to that.
All right. Well, it told me to do npm install, so let's run that. And I'm probably gonna have to open that folder in Visual Studio Code.
And this will be a full-on node package that you could, you're gonna npm install, npm start, or you're gonna run this to be able to trigger to, watch and view action data as well. So.
Okay, and it may have just kicked you off of live share. Yeah. Let me re-invite you to live share. Sorry about that.
Oh, no worries. Was that because of changing the directories?
Changing the directory, yeah. Little hiccup there in the live share logic. Okay, so we've got our node modules, index, JS, and let's see. Were you able to get reattached?
Yes, it's coming up now. I'm not sure if I need to log in back again if it's a new window.
I'm not seeing you. Maybe we'll find out here.
It is now opening remote session.
There we go.
Here I am.
Okay.
Cool. So this gave us sort of like this very simple action environment. It's connected to the Actions toolkit, which is another. It's also a wrapper around the Actions/core library,
Okay.
which is going to give us access to things like tokens and also action run environments too as well. So with this, we can do a couple different things. Like we can probably just throw in some like random JavaScript just to make sure we can see this thing running. But at the end of the day, what we're going to want to do is just create a file to be able to read. The ultimate goal is to read another JSON file, and then manipulate that context and data. So it might help that this maybe put a sample JSON file here in the project so we can just test it locally. And then we can infer where that JSON file comes in later.
Okay, so I'm just going to copy that file from the Apex recipes repository. We'll just copy that over, and we'll put in a new file. And the packet that's called sfdx project, project JSON. Okay, so we've got that file there.
Yeah, and then going back to our index.js, we can on line 2 just like const and
feel free to type.
Require. Oh yeah, you know what? I forget this is a live share.
Yeah.
So I don't know if we would just want to call it data and then require that file, which I think I don't know if it's gonna fs sdx.
sfdx-project.json. Now, is that going to read it from this repository? How's it going to get it from the checkout of the actual?
Yeah, so this is just for testing purposes.
Okay.
I should also caveat just testing this local. What we're going to eventually just do is probably, 100% what we're going to do is going to read from the current environment and then assume that I think this already sits in there. Yeah, I mean, this is going to be, if they do the actions checkout, it can just assume that it's in the root.
Gotcha.
Of the checkout.
Okay.
So, like, basically, this will just get pulled down here.
Okay.
And then we'll have some assumptions there. So with that, but I guess the logic of actually grabbing this data and manipulating that data should be pretty straightforward here. And like, to be quite honest, it might make more sense to pull this out into a function beforehand.
I like functions.
And then we can also bump this into bump it into like a lib folder or whatnot, or even have it as a separate npm package. But for the sake of the viewer not being confused, we can just do that here.
Okay.
Yeah, because we can go pretty crazy and over-index and have a bunch of files, but for the sake of this, we'll do it like this way. So in order to get I think the data is gonna, because it's a JSON file, it's gonna give us JSON, which in this file, I'm just looking at the object of the JSON,
which is data.
I guess we could, yeah. So then we could just do data dot package directories, and it's like I don't quite understand all this context here, but is there? I don't know if there's going to be multiple package directories here, but I guess we could just grab the first one, just for the sake of making it quick and dirty.
Yeah, I think for right now we can just intelligently say it's only going to increment the first package, but yes, there is the ability to have multiple packages.
Okay. And then we'll have this version number, which I think we could just make that version number. And honestly, we could have did destructuring. Everybody who's watching, apologies on my my bad JavaScript. But if we just wanted to increment, actually, we'll probably want to split this
into an array.
Yeah, which I guess.
Do we have to escape that? Or no, I guess it's in quotes.
Yeah, and we should be able to test this too as well out in the terminal that's below too as well. Naming's hard. Split version.
I would do version array, maybe. Although
that sounds good. And then from that
Or
version
actually,
array,
this would be a great place to show array destructuring because we could do major, minor, patch, or major, major, minor. What is it? Major, minor.
I understand where you're coming from, but yeah, if you want to explain, the last one's patch, and then you have like this like
we have
next.
build, yeah, or next is
build.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, so basically, even looking down here in the actually my terminal's open, but I'm not sure if yours is.
Mine is, yes.
And what's on the screen? Okay, yeah, I mean there is a Simver type number, which is major is going to be the 14, minor is going to be the 16, and 0 is the patch, and then your build is also included there.
Yeah, we've got an extra one in the Salesforce universe, basically that build.
Yeah. Okay. And yeah, for continuing on this quick and dirty, what are we were incrementing the patch or the minor version?
We're incrementing the third digit, the patch in this case.
Yeah, so which this will be a string, so we'll want to now I'm like struggling in my head. I know how to write JavaScript, I promise, but
it's not every day you have to look up. Do back and forth. Well, the first rule of codeLive is failure is always an option, and the second rule is everybody looks something up. So we can do this. We can do like
we just need to convert the patch into a number, which
string to integer.
I think it's
parse int.
Parse int. Yeah. Okay. There we go. Shouldn't be capital.
Yeah, exactly. Parse int, and then we don't want to return that. We want to return.
So yeah, we'll parse the int, make it a number, add 1 to it, and then return that back as a string.
And then redo return,
or actually return the entire
major, minor, next, patch, build.join, like that, right?
Yep, this is the beauty of pair programming. We get through this together.
Exactly. Exactly. I love it.
Yeah. So now we can do a quick test of bumping that version. We're actually not passing in the data. So because this could get pulled out into a function, we just want to infer as an argument data there. So that way this kind of works everywhere. And then we can test this out to see if we pass in that string or the version numbers.
So how would you do that?
If it,
in the command line?
I think. Yeah, so in the command line, we could probably just do. We just run this file. So if we did this, and we'd said node index.js or node.period, I think that should run and return something.
It says success, we did it.
Okay, so it actually ran
that bit.
Everything.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I ran the console log stuff, but not our.
Well, we don't have it dumping that out.
Actually, you know what? Because this is actually already running, we can just do this. And bump version.
Data.
And, well, yeah, we can grab data.
So if we run this, I would expect to see. Oh, I would not expect to see.
Beautiful error message.
Yes, version is not defined. Version numbers.
Where did we? Oh, line 14.
Oh, it's version number.
Yeah.
Good catch. Okay, so that says success. We did it. We don't actually have it. Let's do.
Yeah, we're not actually printing anything. So success. We did it.
Yay. We did it. And look, this one actually works out fine. 51.0.1.next. So that's exactly what we want.
Yep.
So now we actually need to write that back to our. Let's do const next version number equals bump version data. So that'll work fine. And then we need to actually write that back to our. I actually don't know how to do file IO in JavaScript.
Well, the beauty is that we don't have to do file IO. I've got another library that we can leverage.
Okay.
So if you go to, could you really quickly, I've got an example where I'm actually leveraging this.
Okay.
Because we can just copy and paste directly from there. So if you go to my profile, github.com/Bdougie, and then /Bdougie, the repo, there is in that lib folder, I'm actually doing this directly, and we can just copy some of those libraries to make this happen. And what?
Wow, I thought I had a lot of repos.
Yeah, it's almost like my day job to create repos. So in the lib folder, there's a file called Octokit plugin check follows. So what you just saw on that dancing Octokit was my profile README. I've got this file is updating my follower account on the README. So this,
I'm totally stealing this, by the way.
Yeah. So and if go back to github.com/Bdougie real quick. I just wanted to point out what this is actually changing as well. So if you look at Bdougie has 1265 followers, that number it gets pulled from the API and then updates to README. So like we could go through the process of creating file.io and reading and writing and manipulating UTF-8 and all that other stuff.
Yeah, well, that's not.
But the beauty of this is that one of the maintainers for Octokit, which is the SDK for GitHub, SDK to consume specifically JavaScript SDK, he created a little project called creator update text file. And since this is a file that has text in it, it's technically JSON, but we can just manipulate it as if it was text, which is basically what it's going to do is basically take the entire file, the JSON file. We can update the one part we want to update, and then send back the text file back.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm doing here at the README.
And you just have to say require add Octokit/plugin. How does that work? How does it know where that is?
Yeah, so we'll have to install that node package, which Octokit/plugin, and we'll also need to install Octokit. And to be quite honest, we might not need to install Octokit already because I think that's already built in to the toolkit.
So do we put that up here? Oh, apparently did not copy it correctly. There we go. So we just put this up here.
Yeah.
And then in the package,
actually, what would be easier to do is instead install Octokit and require that. Actually, so the pattern that I have here, if you go to actions.js in my repository, is basically that pattern.
So in GitHub workflows.
Sorry, on the root, there's an action.js file.
Oh, yes, there it is. So you're gonna.
So here I'm basically requiring Octokit. We don't need core because we're using Actions Toolkit, and that's providing us core.
Okay.
And then the line 7 is where I'm actually pulling in the lib folder. So I think to sort of follow the same pattern is just create a lib folder that only updates that one file, which is that JSON file. And then we can just have this run in the context of the toolkit, if that makes sense. And what the toolkit gives us is a lot of abstraction of the setup and teardown of the action. It's going to have a lot of assumptions on what you have as far as the environment variables and stuff like that. So this will be the path of least resistance just to get something working at the time of pull request.
Okay.
Or rather, I'm not even sure when this is running. This should be running on pull request incrementing the version.
Yes. Well, it'll be on the package
when it gets merged.
When it gets merged, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I tried to install Octokit and it can't find it. Maybe it's because it's not capitalized.
It should be lowercase.
Yeah, there we go. Now it's doing its thing.
Yeah.
So we install Octokit, and then this is automatically part of Octokit?
No, that's a separate plugin we'll have to install separately.
Okay.
And that's what's just going to grab the file, update the file, and then return it back to us.
So that's, how do we install just that plugin?
If you just grab from the, go into that file, the @ Octokit, and then / create or update text file,
all right,
just npm install that.
Okay, there we go. So we've got those two in here.
Yep.
And now we can just call plugin create or update text file like you do here in your repository. Actually, where is it? It's in lib. And you're going to do compose, create, or update. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and I think that I think we could probably speed this up by inferring a bit of this magic too as well. So what we'll probably want to do, we can make a couple different shortcuts. We'll want to be able to read the file that's going to be in the checkout. So I think the way as it lives right now, it should be able to infer that file directly. And let me just double check and keep myself honest by looking at another action.
Okay. While you do that, I'm going to answer a couple questions coming in from the chat. Orlando wants to know, what does Octokit do? It's my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, but Octokit is the JavaScript API interface, SDK. Not sure the right phrase.
Yeah, so
it's how you interact with
it's not JavaScript only, though. We do have .NET, we do have Ruby. We also have third-party managed ones like Python, Go. GitHub is the equivalent of Octokit and Go.
Okay.
So if you go to octokit.github.io, you'll see the list of all the SDKs, and they're all open source. Majority of them are maintained by open source contributors, but the .NET, the Ruby, and the JavaScript one have GitHub employees because that's what we use pretty heavily at GitHub. GitHub employees actually, as part of their day job, is to maintain those as well.
Cool. Yeah, I pulled it up. It looks like it's a Transformer-inspired Octocat, which I'm a fan of. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, we have almost too many Octokits or Octocats. The Octodex is where all of our Octocats lived. So that's one of them. In the, I think, 220 something Octocats that we have in the wild.
Cool. Let me see here. I'm gonna pull up the. Okay, so you were looking up whether or not we could infer that file.
Yeah. Trying to I'm trying to not pull the ripcord and just use GitHub Script instead, because we do it probably pretty quickly in GitHub Script. GitHub Script is an action that we don't have to build our own. We can actually just manipulate in the actual repo itself, and that would already give us the inference of the file.
Okay.
So it might be faster to actually use GitHub Script, which
I've never heard of GitHub Script. Tell me more.
Yeah, so if you go to github.com/action/GitHub Script, we can actually get this working pretty quickly in a GitHub Script, and then copy and paste that into an action later on that could be consumable and readable. I tend to use them for prototyping. GitHub-script, all lowercase. Yeah, so this might be the way to go, to be quite honest. Mainly because I'm trying to remember if I do GitHub checkout, I don't know if I'm going to have what context I'll have when I do this. But the other way to do it, if we can fail fast, is actually push this action we just developed up to a repository and then consume that into the project that we were messing with earlier.
Yeah,
and then we could see what data it looks like.
Okay, so I've seen. I think I've seen this like set results stuff before, but I've never actually done anything with it.
Yeah, it's pretty magical because you can do basically write JavaScript in YAML, and it gives you everything that we have.
Brain hurt. JavaScript in YAML.
It's not. I would say don't try this at home, but I would 100% recommend trying it at home because it's. I tend to, if I have an idea for an action, but I don't want to go and create a repo and do the sort of scaffolding of a new action because I don't know if it's going to last past my I guess fever dream or when I have 30 minutes between a Zoom meeting.
Right.
So instead, I'll just throw in a GitHub script. If it works, then I'll make it into an action. So that's usually my first step.
Okay.
We did go. It's going to give us the same environment we have for the Actions toolkit, though. That's the biggest difference.
So how do we do this with the GitHub script? This is a great idea.
Okay. So go into. I don't know if you can do it in your current VS Code. Do you have another or that project, the Apex? I already forgot what the name of the project was. Apex recipes.
Yeah, Apex recipes. I have it open here. What do you mean? Do we need a new file or?
So I can create a new YAML file that's called this GitHub script.yaml.
And we'll put it in the workflows.
Put it in the workflows folder, and you could probably do a bit of copy pasta from the ci.pr, at least the first 10 lines.
Okay. On pull request.
Yeah, the only thing that I'd probably added workflow dispatch because we want to be able to manually trigger this and test it.
In this one. So on pull request and then types, you said it was manually dispatched?
Just above pull request. So it's going to be another workflow trigger separate from pull request, which is workflow_dispatch. Okay. And you'll have to add, I guess the GitHub added in there for it. I was going to say you have to add a colon, but that already got added.
Yeah.
And then below that, we could add a job. Jobs with a colon, and then below the jobs we can add a job name if you want to call it testing GitHub script or foobar. I think all will work. Just finish it with a colon.
Doesn't like that. Jobs.
What's that?
Incorrect type, expecting it to be object.
Oh yeah. You should have objects below the job itself. So maybe is it complaining that there's nothing yet?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. So here we can add steps below the job name.
So like this. Do we need to set the runs on?
Yeah, we'll need runs on Ubuntu or whatever your preference is.
Okay.
Yep. And then I think it might be because you have one more indent after testing script.
There we go.
There you go. But is that I guess it's all kosher there. So yeah, it's going to continue to complain, I guess, until we have everything written. So here you have a dash and then uses, and this is where you do the action / GitHub script. And this is the repo that you brought up pretty briefly. It's going to point to that repo.
This one?
So these are all the examples. It'll just need to be on a tag. So, which you could do like @v2 or whatever the latest version.
Yep, I'm just going to copy pasta it. V4.
Yep. And then at this point for GitHub script, you'll just want one pipe underneath. And then at this point you can write scripts, JavaScript.
Do I need the width?
Yes. Oh, sorry. Yeah, you do need that. Yeah, copy that.
Like that with script, and then this is what we'll actually do. Just do JavaScript?
Yeah.
Okay.
So instead of this one's actually manipulating labels. Instead, we could do the same thing we did with the const and grab the sfdx JSON file. Which,
like this?
Yeah. Grab that data. And for the sake of just getting this to print something out, I think we'll just console.log data. That way we can confirm the GitHub script is going to work.
Okay.
And then one other thing we want to do is also do the checkout because we want to make sure we're on the main branch. so that when this runs, so above actions, the uses, you want one more uses, which is action checkout v2. Or sorry, yeah. Yeah, you got it. You've been here before. Yeah, so what I would do is
okay.
Yeah, so you want this to, I guess, create a branch and push that to GitHub, and then from there we can then run it manually, just to see the console.log to confirm that we're getting data from the current version of SFDX.
Okay, let me push this. We're gonna new GitHub Script test.
Yeah, and while you're doing that, also I was looking up the token thing that we were starting in advance. That will give us access to permissions to read contents of, I guess the path we're going to read contents of the GitHub token, and then that GitHub token would then need to be paired with, that permissions would need to be paired with pull request _ target. So what that does is basically shut down access to everything else in the repository besides reading the contents of it. And then with pull request target, it opens it up to be able to read the secrets of whatever that secret was that was not accessible.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Like that should be,
I just changed
the path forward.
This is what I just did with the couple of the permissions here with this pull request target.
Yep.
Okay.
So that should at least get you a different error message, not the same one. I don't know if I can't guarantee that that's going to work out of the box, but it should get you pretty close.
Got to commit it. Okay. Somebody's saying they really like this. It's amazing, by the way, on the chat. So we're
awesome.
working to get this here. Now, our GitHub script, right now it's just going to throw this data in the log, right? Which isn't terribly useful. But this is where we could come back over to our previous repo and start doing things like...
So we could copy and paste that full on bump version function and just drop that in the GitHub script.
I feel like it's going to want me to...
yeah, you'd have to end it. Yeah, JavaScript being it's great for fun and playing around with, but it gets very annoying quick when you have to do things like nothing gets formatted properly. So it's like old school. Open up a text header to JavaScript.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got that in there. We've got bump version.
Yeah, so I would just put
data.
Wrap bump version around data in the console.log, and at least it's not going to be the solution, but at least you'll be able to see that that printed to the console of the right version. And then the next step would be go and manipulate the file itself.
Okay, so come on, trying to get that committed here. We're running. We got 8 minutes left here. My handlers have told me we have to stop at 2 o'clock. So even if we don't get this quite finished, what I'm going to do is I'm going to, if you and I can get it finished here real quick, even if we run a little late, then I'll post a blog post about how we finished it up. For those of you who are watching along at home, thank you everyone for tuning in. Suraj, this has been great. Good seeing you. Force Noob, I'm glad you're enjoying this. I am learning a lot here. I'd seen GitHub Script, but I hadn't really realized what I could do with it.
Yeah. So like we started quite a few different paths. So like the one path that we have solved with the permissions, that's a whole separate
thing. Yeah.
Yeah, but this GitHub script is like the stepping stone for us to eventually get back to the repository, because that code that should work in the GitHub script, we can just copy and paste into the action toolkit script that we have.
So if we go into this repository or this pull request, we should see that we have our new checks in place. How do we go about kicking that one off manually?
So kicking it off manually. Sorry, is this
This is the pull request.
This is the GitHub script.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, so going into the Actions tab.
Actions tab.
And this might be different with the because it's on a branch, and I don't remember what the branch was. It's not listed in the list, is it?
No.
Because I think this is inferring from the main upstream branch. So instead, let's do this. Instead of on workflow dispatch, we'll just do on pull request, and then that way it will actually get triggered. The problem with the manual triggers, it has to be existent on your like the actual head. Otherwise, it won't show up in the list, and you can't trigger it manually.
Okay, so it's on pull request.
Okay, so then it already ran.
Well, or it's about to. Let's see here. Oh, it's running testing script right there.
Okay.
Cool. The workflow is not valid. GitHub Script -YAML line 6 unexpected value pull request.
Yeah, there's a syntax thing going on.
Yeah, what is it though? Do I need to put anything down underneath workflow dispatch? Or say, I'm sorry, it's on line 6.
I'm looking at the file closely now.
It says line 6, column 5, unexpected value pull request. It does not like this.
Oh, it needs to be underscore.
Oh. You know, the world would be a better place if we could just all agree on one thing. Like, come on.
But then, how would you get your certifications in YAML if everybody agreed?
Can we talk about my feelings about YAML?
I don't know if we have enough time to go over that.
Like, my therapist tells me I'm gonna put her in the next tax bracket if I have to deal with the YAML for much longer.
That is amazing. So that should get us over. Actually, I'm just going to take a quick peruse through that file too as well.
There we go. Pushing.
Yeah, and the beauty of this is too as well, since this is all open source, anybody following along can go click through, look at the old PRs in the event that this does get merged, and then the context of it is living in history.
It still doesn't like pull request. We were just looking at the control permission, and it is... Oh, it's pull requests, and it is a dash.
Oh, sorry. I was thinking that was line 12, which line 12 is correct. But yeah, we we didn't fix anything. We broke it further.
+1 for consistency. Fixing YAML. I have this theory that you can interview developers just by asking to write git commit messages. For, like, you give them a branch and you say, now write the git commit message for this, because you get to see their understanding of the code and how they write the commit messages. I think I think I would not hire myself based on the fixing YAML commit message.
Does this work? Question mark. That's my last commit message.
Please, dear God, for all that's good and holy work.
Yes, that's why I love Squash. You know, Squash isn't the one cohesive commit.
Yep. I also refer to it as magic. So, okay, we pushed that, and we'll go back to our GitHub.
Yeah, and the irony is that their permissions is, in this case, is not as necessary. But we'll see if it gets... oh, we got another failure.
Expected format was not the correct type. Actual actions, checkout v2, and it wanted org repo path.
Oh, yeah, you're missing an @ symbol.
Okay.
Yeah, this is
Is it always checkout @v2?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right, we'll commit that. Let it format everything again. Okay, so I have 158 here. In a minute, we're going to have to turn off the stream. But like I said, if you can stick on with me, we'll get this figured out. And what will happen is we'll keep recording this, and so the on-demand version will have everything, but then the actual live stream will have ended, unless you've got another meeting right after this, don't you?
I do have a meeting after this, but I can give you 5 minutes to clean this up.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and then I'll I'm just re-reviewing the YAML just to make sure there's not another gotcha in here.
I wish you could apply a schema to YAML, and so that we could verify it locally before doing all the rigmarole.
There is I think the GitSense plugin has a built-in action checker, and what do you call it? VS Code.
Oh, it's running now.
And is it running? So that's a good that's a good sign.
Okay, you said
at least get a.
Hold on, sorry. GitSense.
Yeah, that's the one I've been using, and it catches some GitHub Action stuff. It does a bit of the other stuff that the other GitHub plugin is doing too as well, but.
Okay.
I do like it for that. Yeah, there's some other plugins for GitHub Actions as well.
Okay. Well, let me turn off the live stream here. Thank you all for tuning in. Yep. I look to see you all again next Thursday. But if you found this useful, go ahead and click the subscribe button or the like button, or make my day and do both. And thank you again, Brian. Let me